Hey folks, I've talked a lot about production milling and what it is or what the differences are between other kinds of milling. And I wanted to kind of show a little bit about what production milling looks like, particularly for a portable sawyer, a remote sawyer. You know, you're showing up on site, a new site, different arrangement, new off bearers. You got to take some time to train the crew, get everybody going and up to speed, and really get them knowing what they're going to do, and kind of show the off bearers how things go, and really get going. So this particular log yielded about 54 board feet of 1x8s, and it took under 8 minutes, about 7 minutes and 50 seconds or something like that. And that's not a bad rate. I think if I were to mill at this rate all day long, I would yield about 320 board feet per hour, which for 1x is really not bad. You know, you could see guys say, well, I milled 1,000 board feet an hour, I milled this or that. But you always got to ask, what are they milling? If you're milling beams, you know, a 50 board foot beam, you can easily mill one of those up fairly quickly. Essentially, that's making the cant. And in this particular case, I think it took me about 3 minutes to get to the cant. And the cant was 8 inches wide by 8 inches tall. So you have some cap cuts to do and a couple flitch cuts, and you kind of have to flip it around a little bit here and there to get past the wane. Once you get past the wane, though, you're down to the final cant. And then it's just a matter of rock and rolling and getting down. And I think one of the things that I want to point out here is consistency. Production milling isn't always about speed or high yield, though high yield, of course, is the goal for production sawyer. You really want to get that yield up as best you can while producing the best product you can. And I can't stress that enough, especially as a portable sawyer where, and perhaps for anybody, but when you're showing up on site with a new customer and you're milling lumber for them for the first time, maybe it's the first time they've ever had lumber milled for them, you want to make sure that you're producing the best product you can. And so that might mean that you're not going to mill quite as fast as you can, at least not in the beginning. Once you get things rolling, then things might change. But fairly early on, it's really more about getting everybody in tune with the production and how you're going to make lumber out of each log, and how to off bear. And one of the things you'll notice here is that the off bearers really are jumping in quick and grabbing slabs off and pulling boards off as I make them. And this is really important if you're going to try to get your production rates up. It's really important to have somebody right there off bearing for you as you go. That way you're not slowing down. You just don't want to have to slow down. So when I say consistency is the key, which I do a lot, that's really important because you're going to do log after log after log. Now this log took less than 8 minutes to complete, and that's not bad. That's really not bad if you're producing about 320 board feet an hour. Now these mills are rated at 500 board feet an hour, but you know, you're not going to get that on 8.5 foot logs that you're making 1x's out of, even milling on the evens like I am here. Milling on the evens is where you set your simple set at 1 inch. And for those that are new to these mills, or really any kind of mill and producing lumber, you always have to account for the kerf. And the kerf is the thickness of the blade or the band. In this case, it's just shy of 1/8 of an inch. So if I set my simple set at 1 inch, that means I'm going to end up with a 7/8 inch thick board, which in this case is what the customer is looking for. Over 3/4 of an inch, doesn't have to be a full 1 inch. It'll dry down a little bit, about a 1/16 of an inch in thickness. So they're going to end up with something thicker than 3/4 of an inch, and they're using rough sawn to make a fence. Once you get that cant set, you drop your side supports out of the way, clamp the log nice and low, and then you just start rocking and rolling. And one of the things you'll notice in this video, if you kind of back up a little bit and look at the beginning, I check the height of the log in the center like I do quite commonly, but I only did that a couple times, and that's because by this time the logs were all fairly consistent. I knew exactly what I wanted to build out of each one of them, and so I really didn't have to spend a lot of time doing any kind of measurements or anything. You make sure the pith is centered, but if it's a pretty even log, then there's not even anything you really have to do there. You get down to your cant, jump on your simple set, and you just start rocking and rolling and getting down the log. I was really fortunate on this day of milling because the wind was at my back and it was really pushing all the sawdust away from me, so that was really nice. Sometimes the wind is going the other direction. In later videos you'll see on this particular job the wind reversed direction and just buried me in sawdust. One of the things that you do as you get going and you start getting down into the cant, and you'll see me doing it in this video, is you check where that pith height is based on what your simple set is set at. So since I'm set at 1 inch, all I've got to do is check the last cut before the pith and make sure that I've got more than 1 inch between the last cut and the pith itself. If I've got 1.5 inches, that's perfect. So that means that when I make my cut above the pith, it'll be about 1/2 inch above the pith, and my next cut will drop 1/2 inch below it, and I'll box out that heart, which is something that you always really want to do. So there you go, 7 minutes 50 seconds, log off the deck, 320 board feet an hour. That's consistency. That's what you got to do. If you take anything from these videos, one of the things that I'm trying to show in them is that when you get producing, when you're really trying to produce for a customer, you've got to be consistent. You got to get to the cant fairly quickly. Then you've got to start knocking down the cant, and as soon as the cant's off the deck, then you got to be ready to load the next log up. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. You'll get notified when the next video comes out. Thanks for watching, folks. The old Jarhead out.